Hey everyone, welcome to Berries and Blades. My name is Easy to Remember, and this is a breakdown of the announcement trailer for Lies of P Overture, the DLC for Lies of P releasing this summer. Quick spoiler warning before we get into this, because I will be talking about things that happen in the base game and speculating on what we might see in the DLC. Before we get into the trailer, let's take a look at the director's letter that was shared on the Lies of P social media channels. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but let's start at the top and feel free to pause if you want to read it all. Dear citizens of Krot, this is Ji-Wan Choi, the director of Lies of P. Cross the bounds of time and join in my excitement as we take you back to the beginning of the Lies of P storyline. It goes on to say, as you might have guessed from the title, Lies of P Overture takes you back in time to uncover the hidden stories of Krot. I will say the name did throw me off at first, but now having read this letter and the description that was provided with the trailer, it all makes sense because an overture refers to something introductory. I was thinking of it in music terms, as in the orchestral introduction to a ballet or an opera, and maybe that's just because I really associate Lies of P with good music. Anyway, the letter goes on to say, we're going back in time to experience the journey that led up to the moment when we woke up in the middle of the puppet frenzy. Further down the letter, Choi Ji-Wan goes on to talk about how director's cuts of films differ from their theatrical releases and usually includes additional footage that the filmmaker believes perfects the work, then states, with Lies of P Overture, I wonder if we subconsciously aim to create a developer's cut of Lies of P. It really sounds like the team had a lot of stories and features that they didn't get to implement in the base game, so they wanted to put them into Overture. Lastly, separate from the director's letter, I just wanted to point out the description on the official trailer that's also posted on the Lies of P website. Cross the bounds of time in Lies of P Overture, a dramatic prequel that transports you back to Krot in its unseen grandeur on the verge of collapse. Follow the path of a legendary stalker, uncover hidden secrets, and endure relentless battles that will define the past and future of Lies of P. And with that, let's just get into the trailer. Okay, so I have to stop immediately because we open on Geppetto's puppet, who's holding something that looks to be the size of the moon phase pocket watch, but it's different. It's glowing blue and out of it comes flying a white butterfly. In those first two shots, we seemingly get confirmation on the fan theory that we'll access the DLC from the Broken Stargazer near the Path of the Pilgrim Stargazer in Chapter 5. You can see the building and the outhouse next to the Stargazer, and the butterfly seems to lead Geppetto's puppet to the nearby cemetery with that unusable Stargazer.
Can it be winter all of a sudden?
I'm sorry. You want to know the year?
Next we see these foxes jumping through the snow, and we hear Jiminy say, how can it be winter all of a sudden, indicating that something strange has happened to the passage of time. This is the first time we've seen snow in Krot since the original announcement trailer in May of 2021. That trailer opened on the city of Krot with snow falling and a very different voice for Geppetto.
Rat. Blossomed into fortune by hands of craftsmen.
But we'll revisit that trailer later. P walks out overlooking the city of Krot, where we get our first glimpse of a new Legion arm. From the overlook, Geppetto's puppet can see a building that looks like the Grand Exhibition Gallery, but this is probably the Hall of Adventure we see later in the trailer. We can also see the Krot City Zoo nearby, and 5 hot air balloons floating up above. We hear a new voice say, I'm sorry, you want to know the year? Then we see the side of the tram that connects different parts of the city before we're given a view of the carnival that's probably part of the Marvelous Puppet Show festival that we see in flyers when we first learn about the Parade Master. Alright, let's keep going.
What a pleasure to meet a stalker worthy of the name. It's been far, far too long.
Oh, my forever friend. Help me to hold your hand and dance.
Next we see Peistrus, the submarine that's made to look like the terrible dogfish from the Adventures of Pinocchio. It's being placed in the water where we found it at the end of the Relic of Trismegistus. Then we hear a voice that might be immediately recognizable to some as Nil Nubon, who played Astarion in Baldur's Gate 3.
What a pleasure to meet a stalker worthy of the name.
I think we can assume he's playing Alidoro as he talks about being worthy of the name, and fake Alidoro always talked about worth or being worthy. Then we see the Hall of Adventure with banners that say Walks Amongst Giants with a large mastodon at the center. We then see a kitten, seemingly the same cat we see in Hotel Krot, walk up to P and allow itself to be pet. This is where we see a better shot of the new Legion arm. The arm itself is white and has these 2 barrels across the top. I compared it to the Legion arm hidden in the base game files, and it doesn't look like the old model of the shotgun, but I'm willing to guess that this is a shotgun. As far as where this scene takes place, I'm inclined to say that it is in Hotel Krat, as the shape of the couch is the same, and we see this vase with those flowers and that style of table in a couple of locations within the hotel. In addition, the crates are the same crates we see near Eugenie's workshop. We see P dancing in a circus tent with a poster on the wall that says Carnival Zone. There are parade master and jester puppets around the room. I think these parade master puppets came first because the flyer we found says, "This parade master was made big in commemoration of the grand exhibition," as if they model the large puppet that we fight on the smaller ones. The sign on the wall says Clown Circus, and then just underneath that, it might say Test Your Talent. It's hard to tell because the first word is blocked from our view, but it seems like P is dancing for the puppet machine and then gets some sort of congratulations at the end. It's also worth pointing out that up until this point, we've been hearing a different, more up-tempo version of List Room, a track that was released back in September of 2024. And it's very possible that this is now another new song that starts at 35 seconds in.
You're not the puppet I was expecting. Who are you?
We then see a tiny blue light fly up to P's face, which at first I thought was a fairy because we're hearing a voiceover at the same time. But then we see a similar blue light coming from a white and gold winged puppet. The blue lines are similar to the strings we see on some of the puppets throughout the game, but more specifically, they look like the strings we see on the Nameless puppet when it's under Geppetto's control. We see a woman who has two puppet arms wearing a glove that looks similar to the one Geppetto wears, that has these blue threads emanating from it. And this gold mask the winged puppet is wearing reminds me of a mask from the original announcement trailer I said we'd be visiting again. We can see Geppetto walk into this building that looks like a church and approach this large creature lying on the floor in pieces, and he's removing something from it. You can see the mask here that has similar protrusions from it. I was previously under the impression that Geppetto was there to get something to bring us to life, because that's how the original announcement trailer ends, but I'm kind of hoping that we find out that it was the moment when Geppetto gets the glove or device to control the Nameless puppet. Back in the Overture trailer, we see this new person has blue skin, as if she has absorbed ergo. It makes me wonder if this is someone who has survived the petrification disease and evolved in the way Simon Manus was hoping to evolve the population of Krat. Her skin also looks the same as Geppetto's hands when he removes his glove, which makes me wonder if Geppetto would have eventually needed to get mechanical arms if he kept working with and using ergo the same way he was. The last thing I noticed about this scene is that she also has pulse cells on her belt, which I'm not quite sure we see on other people throughout the game. Next, we see something very similar to the bags of decay hanging from the ceiling, and a much larger enemy falls out. The most interesting part of this is that it appears to be a hand holding this bag, and there's a face on the wall behind it with a labyrinth-looking symbol on it. That's the same imagery we see throughout the Archabbey, and the monster has clearly been exposed to ergo, so I'm wondering if we revisit Alchemist Isle, or if this is some other location where they were harvesting ergo.
Legendary. She stepped up only because no one else could. Too many stalkers were lost to that evil.
In that shot, we see a metal cylinder that almost looks like it's frozen shut, but it begins to open, revealing canisters that vent something, almost like steam. I really don't have a guess for what this might be, but we did see this in the concept art that was shared in October of 2023 when they first mentioned working on DLC. Next, we hear another voice that I don't think we've heard previously.
Legendary.
And we see this red candle wax-like creature or sculpture. The wax is melting and flowing down to the lower portions, but the wax forms various body parts and faces. And then we see the legendary stalker for the first time. I believe it's them because of the mask, but more so the plume. I say that because we see the legendary stalker in the visions on the Black Seaside in Chapter 11. This stalker also has a Monad's lamp like the one that holds Jiminy. If we traveled back in time, could this be the same lamp? Did we see other stalkers with lamps? One of the strangest things that I've always wanted to know more about is what Jiminy was previously before we found him in the lamp. Sophia makes a comment about how they got Jiminy too.
I see they got Jiminy too.
And on the beach, we hear the legendary stalker tell Jiminy to take care of us.
So annoying. Jiminy, get rid of him. I'm off.
It almost sounds like he wasn't always stuck in the lamp, but now I'm not sure. Next, we see P fighting a creature with a tank on its head that for some reason reminds me of the Walker of Illusions. Whatever this thing is, it's using a spinal column for its weapon, or maybe a tail. This new sword he's holding is very mechanical looking, almost like the two blades are pincers and can open and close with the gears on it. Then P uses a trumpet and calls in Alidoro, who's using his two dragon sword. We get another new enemy, maybe a stalker. I assume stalker because they're wearing a gas mask with ram horns, and we know that stalkers see some sort of hierarchy in the animals that they wear. But also, the masks are meant to filter out spores and keep them from getting infected with petrification disease. This enemy is wielding a large hammer that is propelled by flames like the booster glaive handle. P is wielding another new large sword with 3 glowing circles, maybe indicating it inflicts fire damage. And again, he's using the Legion arm with 2 barrels. It's got to be a gun of some sort, and I really do think this is a new design for the shotgun Legion arm that wasn't used in the base game. Then we see a shot of P using a bow and arrow and wearing a new Legion arm that looks very elvish to me. It's green and gold and has this interesting blade coming off the forearm. At this point I was asking myself if this is specifically for use with the bow, or is it a bladed melee arm? The arrow charges up with red energy and we see that P is shooting at a monstrous shark that is jumping out of the frozen water that he's standing on. In the next shot we see P with Tekko Kagi, or Wolverine claws, which I'm pretty stoked about. I think we're seeing one of its Fable attacks here. He's fighting another new enemy that has a ball and chain for a weapon in an environment that could be a prison, or even a terrible sanitarium because the enemy looks like they have a number of restraints on them. Its movement and its look and the way it falls here sort of reminds me of the Door Guardian.
I'll do whatever it takes. Your survival is all that matters. Nothing else comes close, not even my life. I swear I won't be late. Not again.
In this next sequence, P is holding another new blade with an interesting handle. When we get a better look, we can see that it's a gun blade, meaning it's both a gun and a sword, and we get to see him fire it, which I'm assuming is one of the weapon's Fable arts. There's also a better shot of this weapon and the new gun Legion arm on the Liza P website. This also seems to be a better look at the enemy we saw fall from the bag of decay earlier in the trailer. And now we hear the legendary stalker speak.
I'll do whatever it takes. Your survival is all that matters.
While P is fighting the woman controlling the winged puppet, she seems to be using the threads to control it and a bunch of blue orbs of light, which we can assume is some sort of ergo. P is holding a weapon that looks like a lance, like the kind of thing you would use when jousting. And in the final fight, P is holding a curved blade, and using what I said looks like an elven Legion arm, which answered my earlier question about whether or not the arm was specifically for the bow and arrow. The sword is almost certainly the legendary stalker sword as we saw them holding it earlier, and we can see it in the image where P is holding the gun blade. The enemy that is approaching follows the same theme of many of the enemies we've seen so far, and that's a carcass enemy type. It seems to be mutated because of this petrification disease, and also has extra limbs like the enemy that was in the bag of decay. This also looks like it could have been a bear, as we can still see half of a bare face. The last clue that this is the legendary stalker sword is the Fable art attack we see. Not only do we get the typical blue lines as P slashes, but we see red petal-like structures appear and falling as the attack continues. We can see these petals on the image we have of the legendary stalker from the background of the Liza P website. And this last line confirms that this is really the legendary stalker in my mind.
I swear I won't be late. Not again.
She seems to be referring to what happened when Monad's charity house was overrun with the petrification disease, or maybe more specifically attacked with the petrification disease.
My God. No. I'm sorry. I was too late.
The details on what happened at Monad's charity house are vague, and there's reason to believe that Simon Manus orchestrated that event to get rid of Valentinus, but that's a whole nother discussion.
I wish I'd got here sooner. If I had known this would happen.
And that's going to bring us to the end of the trailer where we get to see the release window for Liza P Overture, summer 2025. Thanks for watching, and comment down below with anything I missed, speculation, or things you're hoping to see addressed in Liza P Overture. If you want to talk about your ideas, you can come catch me streaming here on YouTube or on Twitch. Check the description for the link to the Twitch channel and the Berries and Blades podcast, where you can hear me, Joseph, and Taylor talk about our thoughts on Liza P and other game-related stuff. I'll see you again very soon.